Hi, friends, and welcome back to the show. My name is Calvin True. I'm a performance and nutrition coach, a first year PhD student studying exercise physiology, as well as the host of this podcast, the Calvin True Podcast. Welcome. And before we get into the episode, first thing I want to say is that there are two types of people in this world: those who are subscribed and those who are not. And so if you are subscribed, I love you. You are a beautiful human being. And those who aren't and they're listening for free without subscribing, don't be a moocher. Come on now. Just go hit that subscribe button for me. That'll help me out. And while you're doing that, if you have a girlfriend, a boyfriend, somebody in your home, a roommate who may have a phone, I want you to try to be sneaky, grab their phone, maybe hold the phone up to their face while they're asleep, get the Face ID scanned, open up their phone, don't go through their texts, don't go through their browsing history, don't do none of that weird stuff, but go to Spotify, go to Apple Podcasts, and hit subscribe for me. And then put the phone away. But make sure that you plug the phone in for them so the phone's charged, and make sure that their alarm is on so then they can wake up on time. That's all you gotta do. That's all you gotta do. So if you are subscribed, thank you. You can also partake in that activity. And if you are not subscribed, that is your punishment. That is your entry fee for this episode. So thank you. Welcome. So with this episode, and while I was prepping this a little bit ago, my allergies started going off, and I was like, oh gosh, please don't annihilate my nostrils right now, because my allergies are more so I get very stuffy nose. And yeah, so I hope that doesn't annihilate me because it's raining right now. But I was planning, and this topic on this episode today, the working title as of right now is what do you value and how to choose them? And this is a second component of the 4 cornerstone episode sequence that I have for this chunk. And I'm doing something with it too. And this is going to be like a sequence that I can refine every few months, as this will be something that is a way for me to remember these type of things. So me thinking is, so episode that we did last week was all about identity change. So the title of that one was how to bridge the gap between who you are and who you want to be. And so this topic today is going to be about values. Working title is what do you value and how to choose them. The episode for next week is going to be on habits and environment. How to build habits that how to build habits that match your identity. I am reading my notes right now and my handwriting is like chicken scratch. The fourth one of this cornerstone is all about mindset and resilience. How to keep going when you want to quit. And I know that the big thing with these episodes, with the podcast and definitely with my PhD and my field of expertise in, is exercise, fitness, nutrition, programming, nutritional protocols, whatever. But for you to do those things, the ones and zeros, it's really important to know who you are and who you want to be. And this is just very salient for me. And I will be walking you through how I define my own values, because these are emotions that I have felt through my life. And this is very top of mind right now. And me writing this down helps me get stuff from my brain onto paper. And for hopefully you can resonate with this, is I don't know who I am. I don't know what I believe in or stand for. I don't know what to do next. And my environment's pulling me off track. And I feel like giving up. So with that emotional journey, who am I? What matters to me? And how do I make it real? And how do I keep going? And so with these questions that I have thought to myself, I want to walk you through the journey of how I'm doing this for myself, this exercise, which is doubling down as me creating these 4 episodes for you guys to help give you clarity, to help give you direction in changing who you are, figuring out who you are, what do you value, how to keep going, crafting and curating your environment that so then it's in alignment with what you want, and then you can move on and do the thing and become the person, all those things. And so that's what I'm doing. So on today's topic, I'm going to be walking you through this roadmap, but more so on the topic of values and what was going through my mind as I was trying to define values. Because just like last week's episode when it came to vision, I don't think it's something that many of us sit and think about or were told to what to think about. When I was younger, what I was told to think about in my household, since I'm first generation, parents are immigrants. And so my mom, she came here when she was in her teens and no money. And she owns her own nail salon business. I wouldn't say now that I'm listening to how people define different things of like business owners or self-employed. She is self-employed. She created a job for herself. And this is not me knocking her or any of the things that she had to endure and all the sacrifices that come for me. But with her only having a high school education, she only knew the path that she knew to how to provide for all of us and create a future for herself, which she has done wonderfully, was to be a nail technician and owning. At one point, she owned a few salons. Now she's just down to a single salon right now, a nail salon. And so she always wanted better for us. My parents always wanted better for me and my siblings. And so they would reinforce the idea of, I want you to be a doctor, a lawyer, something like that. And those were kind of the only things that was on top of mind. And that was the only vision that I was taught how to have a vision. And when it comes to like the religious side, I know that I went to a Catholic school, and for about 3 to 5 years during those primary years, I think second to fifth grade. So yeah, that's like 3 years. And I was taught, raised underneath the religious umbrella of being Buddhist because my mom is, and I had friends across the different religions, but I was never really taught like how to. I was taught how to have like goals, like mile markers, like things to achieve, accolades, but not really how to have a vision for myself, how to have an idea of what I want for my future, what I want for myself, what I want out of everything. And so that's was the type of person I want to be. Besides the generic, just be a good person, be a kind person. And nothing wrong with that, but it just that's it. It's so vague. I think that's the word I was looking for. And so that's why I did the vision episode for the last one, is how to, well, create or even have a vision and how to cast that vision and how to reverse engineer to work back. And which naturally leads to values. And so I started asking myself, what do I value? How do I choose values? And me going through a bit of an identity crisis and shifting of identities and a lot of things that has happened in recent years, I came to the intersection of asking myself, what matters to me? Because if nothing matters, if nothing is real, if everything is made up, then nothing matters. And that doesn't help too much. In one sense, it does. In another sense, it doesn't. And so if nothing can matter, then it's up to you to assign or subscribe to meaning. So I wanted to, and so since I don't want to make this like a religion episode or anything like that, but like I don't subscribe to any specific religion. And so I'm trying to craft this out of my own. Like, but I do have faith and walking the spiritual path and all these type of things and learning more about myself and who am I, understanding myself and the world around me and how do I want to navigate it. What's my operating systems? What are my values? What are my North Star, my vision, my mission, my purpose, all those things at 29. And these are the things that I feel like I've been walking kind of shadow, but empty. And so I'm going to be walking you guys through how I'm crafting my own values. And so then you can craft your own. And then this can act as an operating system, a guiding principle for yourself whenever you are shifting and changing and how to make decisions and behaviors and like a lot of these other things. And this is also very top of mind because I am finishing up my first class. I think the word is serendipity. I'm finishing my first class on my PhD right now, and it's on professional ethics. And my first assignment, writing assignment, the big one that was halfway through the course, I submitted that 2 weeks ago, and it was all about defining your mission, vision, and values. And all these subsequent weeks of assignments and discussion boards and etc. led up to that, and ethics and all these type of things. So it's kind of funny how I'm sitting and thinking about this. I have the assignment in school. I am at this huge pivotal moment in my life right now where I quit my day job to work for myself. So I'm trying to build a business, trying to learn how to create and share content and share my thoughts, and also build a business and earn a PhD and train for all these big things and do a lot of these things. And a lot of these things, I feel like I'm standing on unstable grounds. I don't feel like I feel like I'm standing in quicksand trying to gain traction, or I don't feel I'm very rooted to able to weather all of these large, scary goals and missions. And so I've been doing a lot of deep digging to get to the seed of it all, to figure out, because you don't find who you are, you build and you craft who you want to be strategically and intentionally. You don't just wake up and you're this person. You don't go find that version of you. You build that version of you, because that just feels like it resonates the most with me. That makes the most sense. And it places power back in my hands. It gives me autonomy. And I feel empowered that I have a saying in the matter, rather than I am giving it up to somebody to tell me who I am. And I've done that for lots of parts of my life. And I've stumbled when I allow others to dictate who I am, what I value, what I want to want. And it hasn't always been fully aligned, nor was I the happiest or felt the most inner peace. So I'm working through all that. I'm working through that, and I want to walk you through if any of this is resonating with you and how you can do that for yourself too. Because values matter. Like we're never like, I feel like most of us, and just in my own life, aren't taught, what do you value? What are your core tenets? What are the things that you really hold very tightly through all these different stages of life that we go through? They're open to shift. They're not trends, but you may hold them very strongly, but you must be willing to also evolve with them, and your values will change as the situation of your life changes, your vision changes, your mission, and everything of you will change. Excuse me. So let's talk about what are values. And so I was sitting with myself, I'm like, what are values? And so the way I define values are like, values are the deeply held principles, or like qualities that guide your decisions, behaviors, and how you interact with the world. They're not just what you believe, they're the standards that you measure yourself by when no one's watching. They're the root system, they're the operating system to who you are. And I like to think about the analogy of a tree of seeds. So say those seeds are your values, and you plant them into the dirt, and then you water them and you give them time to grow, and the root system will grow. But if the roots are very shallow and a storm comes or something happens, then the tree, the plant, can be ripped out of the soil very quickly. And however, if you have very deep root systems, if you have your values very deeply rooted, then you can weather the storm much better. And so I was doing some digging, and I think the way that you define your values are like, values are very emotionally charged because they're linked to your emotions. Which that made sense to me When I was looking around, my first thought is like, how do people define their values? When people share with me their values, like their business values or core tenets, or as a person, it always felt very surface level and very generic Target, Walmart poster that's just so cliche. And even on when I was doing this writing assignment, the teacher gave a list of values that were like, it just felt so surface. It just felt so scripted. And so I started thinking back, what are the things, the threads that really emotionally charge me? Like that I just feel electric about, especially in this moment in life that I'm in right now. And so I have 7 of them that I wrote out that I will share with you, and we will go through them. And as I go through this is not me saying that this is the most perfect way of going throughout this entire process. I'm just telling you what has worked for me, what has made the most sense, straightforward pipeline of how I'm figuring this out, taking an audit of my current self, trying to define and have a envision what that vision of me, what I want, and who he is, and what does he value, and how would I like to become that person, and comparing that to the lack of values I have right now, and really defining it and cementing it. And there's so much power to getting your thoughts onto paper so you can visually see it and really self reflect, be very introspective with it, and go from there. And so the first value that I have defined for myself is integrity. So integrity is the first one. And I'm going to read a bit here from the actual paper I wrote because I like the way I wrote it. Integrity. One of the core values I try to live by is integrity. To me, integrity means doing what aligns with your values, especially when no one is watching. This ties deeply to a psychological concept I always come back to, the man in the other room. It's the idea that there is a better version of me who's always there. He doesn't say anything, but his presence is felt. He listens. Whenever I'm about to do something that doesn't sit right with me and I can feel it in my gut, it's like I can hear him clearing his throat from the other room, not to judge, but to remind me to pause, reflect, and ask, are you sure about this? I spent a lot of my life breaking my own word in both small ways and big ways, but I know that if I want to be a man whose words carry weight, a man who has internal self respect, then integrity must be the nucleus of it all. I'm not saying I need to be perfect, that's not the destination. But one of my deepest pursuits is to believe, without a doubt, that when I say something, my word is my bond. I want to live in a way where I don't have to question whether I'll follow through or break another promise to myself. I don't believe integrity is a place you arrive at, it's a daily practice. And that's why it's one of the values I want to keep refining and lead with. So that is how I define integrity and that psychological concept of the man in the other room has served me very well. And as I was looking over that before the episode when I was prepping, I have found myself moments where that internal voice, that character, I have found myself almost like I have numbed that intuition, that voice, that integrity. And this is where it goes maybe some ethical stuff, and maybe it's just you. It's almost like it's like a dial switch. The less you listen, the more times you stumble and fault and do what you don't want to. Like you do what you know it's not good for you, but you do it anyways. That intuition, that gut feeling, that voice, the clearer the throat of the man in the other room, the better you, the more aligned version of you. I feel like I can almost dampen that sensation and almost dull it. And so if I can do that, then I can undo that as well by trying to remind myself of who am I right now? Am I acting in alignment? Am I displaying integrity? And the only one who knows is you. And so the more times that I lean into that gut feeling and I listen, the more I feel like the darkness is going away and I can hear him, because I don't want to place the blame into someone else's hands saying, the devil made me do this. That's me not choosing accountability. That's me outsourcing my fault. No, that's something that's never sat well with me. It's, no, you made the decision. It is you. And so that leads into the next one, which I'm jumping the second one, which I was going to talk about, but I'm going to go right to number 3 because that followed up. I really laid that one up really well. So the next one is agency and ownership. And I know it sounds like 2 different ones, but it's kind of all in one. And so with this one, agency and ownership, they go hand in hand, 2 sides of the same coin. One cannot exist without the other. The way I define agency for myself is the autonomy to choose, to lead, and to act. Ownership is about carrying the weight of those choices. Together, they shape how I live by taking full responsibility for my path, my progress, and my outcomes. I was born with a set of cards, some privileges, some disadvantages. I can acknowledge where those came from, but I refuse to stay in a place of feeling like a victim. I don't want to live by pointing fingers. Instead, I want to sit up straight and play the hand I've been given to the best of my ability within the constraints I have. Choosing to own my situations, whether it's my fault or not, means taking responsibility for how I move forward and what happens next. And so that is another value that I have identified for myself, is I want to have agency. I value having agency, the choice, and just having the choice, and then owning whatever consequences, whatever results as a byproduct comes from that. Owning it all, having the choice and owning it all, double sided coin. So that's for me. So that's my second one, because I feel like there is a large lack of ownership and agency in the world. Many people I see want to play victim, and I have been playing victim in a lot of different ways recently, believing things that aren't true. Since not every thought is real and not every emotion is a command, it ultimately falls down to me and the game that I'm playing. And then that leads to the next one of the next value that I have for myself is continuous self-improvement. Continuous self-improvement is another value tenet I've established for myself. I think of it like watering my own seeds. If I'm not intentional about pouring into different parts of my life, like my physical health, emotional regulation, mindset, intellectual curiosity, and relationships, those parts begin to wither. I've seen what happens when I settle or get stagnant and I don't like who I become. It feels like I'm slipping backward, and that's not the path I want. I'm not chasing self-improvement because I should or because someone told me it's good for me. I've seen the version of myself that shows up when I don't grow and I don't like him. For me, growth isn't optional, it's essential, like sunlight or water for a plant. And that one, when I was sitting with that one, the part I really want to highlight is, what is the version of you that shows up when you were not in pursuit of something? As of right now, I am in pursuit of intellectual knowledge, challenges, stimulus from the work I do, my PhD that I'm in the process of, my professional pursuits, my purpose, my meaning, how I identify myself as a person who strives. It's one of them is through my work. And the next one is the physical aspect of pushing my body, seeing what I'm capable of, seeing how far my mind can stretch, seeing that version of me doing the thing. I'm not just sitting on the sideline or watching others do it, or wearing somebody else's jersey and watching them do it and sit and talk about them achieving these great things. I want to be the man in the arena. Like that quote from Teddy Roosevelt. I want to be the man in the arena. I want to get in the arena. I want to go in there and fight. So I don't want to just sit on the sideline. And so I have seen how I decompose, and my worst self comes out when I'm not continuously improving myself. And that's just in alignment with me. I have more fun this way. I have much more meaning in this way. It feels like an adventure. And when I say continuously improvement, it's not out of like punishment. It's out of love. I feel different. And I love the adventure when I go on one. And it's cool, which leads into the next thing is endurance and durability. So psychological endurance and durability are values I've come to understand more intimately, and they've become a top of mind reminder as of lately. This life I'm living isn't a sprint, it's an ultra marathon, a drawn out process filled with setbacks, slow stretches, and moments that won't go according to plan. I've had phases where I've spiraled, doubted myself, considered quitting, or given up on myself. How I respond to those moments teaches me the most about who I am. Endurance is having the courage to keep going, especially when the novelty fades and it's just you. Clocking in the long, slow, boring miles. Durability isn't about being impenetrable or pretending things don't affect me. It's about absorbing the weight, carrying the scars, and continuing forward. And I love that identity embodiment and the characteristics of all that comes of a ultra marathoner, ultra endurance athlete. Even though I have never done an ultra marathon, I have done a marathon, and all the endurance training I've done, it's been very introspective and a lot of lessons and time in my thoughts and being able to examine the world. It's that it really is a mental game. The world we live in is a mental game. There's so many people who are so talented, who are so smart, who've had great privileges, who've had situations basically teed up for them to make the perfect shot. But the consistent thing that really pull people back is themselves. People will destroy themselves. And that's where the psychological endurance and durability came in, is that this life is a sprint. Even though I have these mile markers and goals I have set for myself and things I want to achieve in this pursuit, I think in some way it's important to have multiple goalposts and understand that this is all a part of the long quest. Almost like I like watching movies. So my first thought is thinking about Lord of the Rings, thinking about there's several movies and the main character, Frodo, he has to go on so many adventures to 3 different movies to get to the main big thing at the end. But throughout that process, throughout that journey, there's so many battles and conflicts and trials and tribulations to overcome. And as you go through this journey, it's not a straightforward line, it's up and down, but there's so many new versions of you that will come from each one of those challenges. And that's cool. It's what keeps things really interesting. And so making sure that in your mind you have the psychology to endure it all and be durable, because you're not going to make it through this unscathed. You're not going to make it through without getting hit a couple times. You're not going to make it through 9 rounds and get to the last fighter and be like you never got touched. Because and I think there is value to getting hit. I think there's value to getting hit a lot. Is you learn, of course, you learn about yourself. You learn what you can endure. You learn how hard punches that you can take, but you learn how to get back up. You learn all those times where you want to bend the knee and give up, and bend the knee to your lesser self, to the opponent, to the situation. But then you learn how to stand up. You learn how to not listen to those voices. You learn that you have more in the tank. You learn that you have a fifth gear. And you learn that you didn't just make it through 2 rounds to just give up now. You've gotten hit before, you've adapted, and you know how to stand up. So those are reminders for me of being able to endure anything and being able to get hit. And I was thinking about that endurance part during my marathon, because I ran a marathon in like 5 hours, 5.5 hours. I ran at a very slow pace. Like the whole prep for it was all zone 2. I did like almost no speed work just because I've had 3 left knee surgeries. And so and I was already pushing things pretty hard, so I didn't want to add any speed work in, and I didn't believe I can actually run 26.2 miles straight, and so it was very zone 2, and the day that I was actually running it, a lot of things didn't go according to plan, and so I was running it, and I had been getting the bug of doing a Ironman in the future, and knowing that you start with a 2.5 mile swim and then you do 140.1, I think, mile bike ride, and then end it with a whole freaking marathon. I thought to myself, if I can do this marathon, this run right now in 5 hours, boom, I can do that. And I listened to a couple podcasts for like the first 20 minutes, but I really just wanted to be in my own thoughts and work through my mind a little bit. And the mindset in the moment was be hard to kill. Have your ideas, have yourself, have all of you be so hard to kill that you're unkillable. And so that was running through my mind as I was chewing on that idea. And I ran the marathon without any headphones besides the 20 minutes. And I thought to myself, because when you run an Ironman at the very end, you can't listen to music at all throughout the whole thing. I forget what the reason was for that one. But I was like, if I can run this marathon right now by myself at 5 a.m, literally, again, it was by myself, not with anybody else, running around in circles in where I was at, I can endure an Ironman, at least half of one, and especially the marathon part. If I can do this, if I have this endurance, I can do anything. And it goes back to some of my thoughts from CrossFit, whenever it comes to like those high intensity workout days. And one of the phrases I always loved is that a coach would say is, you can do anything for 1 minute. So if you're down to like a 20-minute EMOM workout, whatever, and you have the last minute on like the assault bike, which is just cruel and rude and just feels like self-punishment, and you have to give it all you got, and thinking to myself, if I can just I can do anything for 1 minute. Like, it goes from The Hangover, from Chow, did you die? But did you die? So that's, sorry for doing a little bit of a segue right there. So coming back to this, my next value so far, I've shared with you integrity, continuous self-improvement, agency and ownership, endurance and endurability. Number 5 is discernment. And for discernment, through reframing and perspective shifting. Discernment to me is the practice of choosing your lens. It's the ability to pause, reflect, and examine something from multiple angles before deciding what to believe, how to respond, or what to do next. It's not about faking positivity or forcing silver linings. It's choosing to frame reality as it is, not whatever best fits a bias. If I bomb something I cared about or embarrass myself in front of a client, I don't want someone to tell me to just be grateful. I want to sit with it, feel it fully, and then ask better questions. Why did this happen? What can I learn from it? What's the next move? This way of thinking gives me freedom. I don't want to live by default or accept the first interpretation that shows up. I want to zoom in and zoom out, explore the full picture, and choose the most aligned response. I believe in mental autonomy. I believe in thinking for myself, asking why, and deciding how I want to move forward, not just reacting out of habit or emotion. Discernment isn't about avoiding discomfort or pretending nothing matters. It's about creating space between stimulus and response, using that space wisely. One piece of advice I've heard about public speaking that always stuck with me is there's power in the pause. I try to apply that same principle when I'm under pressure. I follow that with what I call the Batman effect. In the comics, Batman is known for having contingency plans on top of contingency plans. He examines every angle like a scientist and detective, and he doesn't let pressure override his ability to think. I remind myself of this often. If I can manage my mind, I can manage any situation. So when I'm in the thick of it, I ask myself, what would Batman do? And once I ask that question, the answers start to reveal themselves and things become clear. And now, following that, the next value that I have identified for myself is experiences. So this is the depth and richness of a lot of things in my life. And so where this came from was when I started dating my current girlfriend about 2 years ago. we were talking about what we value, what we like, what we don't like, and in the dating context. And the part that she brought up that was really interesting to me was that she values experiences. And so for her, it's not so much materials or things. Of course, she's not like against those things, but she values experiences. So spending quality time, the richness, the depth of getting to know somebody, sharing an experience, sharing a moment, sharing, creating a memory and sharing it with somebody and being able to carry that with you. And so I started mulling over that a little bit more, and that's very true for me as well. I care not so much about having like the nicest car, like when it comes to like paying for where I want to live. I would rather pay a little more in rent to live in a place where it's a walkable city to be able to go outside for a walk for any reason. I value that, being able to walk out my door, go for a walk in the city with around people and pockets of neighborhoods and communities and boroughs and stuff. And I like that. So that's just one example. So I value experiences over just how expensive a trip is, or more so, how meaningful is this trip for me? So that's just a thought right there. So how that kind of bleeds into everything else is maybe for my work. And so as I'm trying to build this business, what do I value? Do I want this to be a one-man show all the time? I actually I would love to have my own studio, my own gym studio slash podcast content space, and be able to have guests in person and do this with other people and to train clients and make content and do it with also other people. Can I do this by myself remotely, go full nomad and keep it very low? I can. But then it's like, do I want to be a one-man person business? Do I want this to be a lifestyle business? Do I want a team of like 3, maybe 4 or 5, and really be able to have a special group to do this together? I do. I value that a lot. I value shared suffering, shared experiences with others. And will that come with some headaches and complications and not as simple as doing it by yourself? Yes. So, but that comes back to everything in life. It's a trade-off. It comes back to the decision-making filter of having values in the first place is, what do you value? So I identified that I valued being able to do this with other people. For example, when it comes to the work stuff and being able to do this in person. So that is a great filter and dictates what steps and what actions I make next and how I behave. And it gives me clarity as well. So that's why one of the reasons why having values is so helpful, because it helps provide you with clarity. Now, moving on to number 7 is my 7th value is standards. One of the values I've come to really hold close is this: have standards. Build them, hold them, raise them in every part of life. Who I am, who I'm becoming, what I allow, what I accept, and what I don't. Having standards is about knowing what your minimum is and not letting that line slip just because it's easier or uncomfortable to hold. Because once you start letting things slide, it shows. The leak starts, things break, and before you know it, and before you know it, you're back to a version of yourself you thought you left behind. I've seen this in myself many times. I felt the disappointment of letting myself down, and I'm tired of doing that to myself repeatedly. I'm not saying I want to be perfectly rigid or live like some 24/7 no weakness machine. It's not about being the best to feed an ego. I want to live in alignment and be proud of myself. Proud of the fact that I did what I said I was going to do. Because only I know if I did it to the best of my ability or not. Only I will know, and only I will have to live with that. I want to be the kind of man my younger self can look at and say, he became what I needed. I didn't have a dad growing up the way a kid should, but I can still be that role model for myself. I want my 8-year-old self to look up to me. I want my 80-year-old self to be proud. Proud that I didn't fold, that I didn't settle, that I held the standard, not just when it was easy, but when it was hard, when it would have been easier to give in or let go, but I didn't. And I think that's a great way how I rounded this out and tied the bow there was standards. Very simply to put it, what do you allow, what do you accept, and what do you don't? Very simple, straightforward questions. And having a standard for yourself allows you to place that minimum floor to know you are falling below right now. You are sandbagging this. Where's your standards in so many different areas of life? Where are you just giving in? Where are you just passively living and acting? And by asking better questions, you get better answers. And you only have one life to live. Have standards. Have standards. If nobody gave them to you, build them. You have every chance, every opportunity to build standards for yourself, and you get to define what they look like. You get to reconfigure them. You get to raise them. You get to lower them. But be careful about lowering them. But then this is where you don't have to be very black and white. Depends on the situation, the context of your current life, what you values. So everything is not supposed to be rigid. Everything from your vision to your values to your standards to everything is adjustable, flexible, and you can configure it and mold it to however way you want it to be. So I am not pushing rigidity, but I am pushing defining what you want things to look like for yourself. And by doing that, that helps you build some type of operating system, principles that you live by, and all comes back to this is the deep inner work stuff that comes back to the health and fitness things of who is the type of person that goes and runs 10 miles a week, who trains a week, who does that 5 hours a week, who does Ironman, who does powerlifting meets, who goes rock climbing, who goes to Pilates, who does all these things, who takes care of himself, who looks a certain way, who feels a certain way, who walks with a certain presence and just eludes this energy and just authenticity of so much self-belief in themselves. And if you want to be these type of people, sure, if you ask somebody, what's your routine? What's your secret? They can tell you what they did, but the things that you can see only happens because they did the deep inner work. They identified who they want to be. They build that vision. And then they learned what matters to them, what they believe in, what they stand for, which acts as the root system and also a compass. And then to the next two episodes that will come out the next week and then the following week are tools. So how they create the habits for themselves, how they created that environment that facilitated their growth, that worked with them and not against them, that didn't pull them off track so easily, didn't keep them so distracted. And then building the armor around yourself and learning how to not give up, learning how to manage your mind, building that psychological resilience, endurance, and durability. And then doing all that deep inner work, then it's a straight downstream pipeline to doing the thing. If you know who you are, who you want to be, what your values are, the next actions, what steps, how you behave, it's very clear cut. It's very clear. And so I hope that was very helpful. I hope I didn't waffle on too many different areas where this got too confusing. I hope that those of you who are listening, the crowd is very small right now. About 4 to 8 people on average listen. So if you listen this long so far, I really appreciate you. My goal with these episodes, probably lengthwise, is around like 30 to under an hour, like 30 to 60 minutes. Really great for like one-way drive to work and then the other half on the way back or when you're cleaning and doing chores and stuff. But yeah, so hope that was helpful. I will keep on refining and getting better with these. And I think this is a great way for me to remind myself too. And so you can build in some type of system for yourself to touch base with yourself, to check in, do your checks and balances and audit like is the vision you have for yourself still the vision you want? The values you have for yourself, are they still the values that you want? And again, better questions lead to better answers. So I'm gonna leave you with that. And again, if you are not subscribed, remember there's only two types of people in this world, those who subscribe and those who don't. And so don't be in that camp. Don't be in that circle. Be a homie, be a homette. Like, subscribe, rate, share, comment. All these things really help. It's a feedback to let me know that it's providing me signal, knowing that you guys are listening, enjoying, and some things is resonating, clicking, adding perspective, another angle, causing internal shift, something really helpful. All right, I'll leave you guys there. I will see you guys next week.